When I told my parents that I wanted my autistic brother to be my best man, my mom screamed in my face, "If he shows up at the wedding, don't call us parents anymore." So I uninvited them and exposed them to everyone they know. All right, Reddit. This one's messed up. My parents hid my twin brother for years to protect their image. When they tried to stop him from being my best man, I exposed them to everyone they knew. Here's what went down. So I, 28 male, live in Greenville, work as a structural engineer, and I'm about to marry the most incredible woman on the planet. Her name's Leah. She's a nurse, and she's got this rare quality where she actually gives a damn about people who can't help themselves. We're expecting our first kid, a girl, in a few weeks, and life is pretty damn good. But here's the thing nobody talks about at Sunday dinner. I have a twin brother named Caleb. Identical twin. Same DNA. Born the same day. Except Caleb has autism, and my devoutly Christian parents have spent the last 24 years treating him like their dirty little secret. Not in a we don't talk about him way, but in a he gets shoved into the basement when the church ladies come over way. Last month, we're having dinner at my parents' house. Normal Tuesday night, nothing special. My dad, Jonathan, is reading some Christian finance book, like always. Dude's a wealth management advisor who thinks every conversation is a sermon about prosperity gospel. My mom, Rebecca, is doing that thing where she sits perfectly straight and makes sure everyone knows she runs the women's ministry at their megachurch. Leah's being polite, asking about wedding stuff while sneaking bits of her dinner roll to Caleb when my parents aren't looking. That's her thing. She sees people others pretend don't exist. The whole meal, I'm watching my parents perform this elaborate dance around Caleb's existence. When he asked for seconds on potatoes, my mom ignored him completely. Just kept talking to Leah about flower arrangements like Caleb was furniture. When he accidentally knocked over his water glass, reaching for the salt, my dad didn't even look up from his book, just sighed like someone had left a window open. Leah caught it all. I could see her jaw getting tighter with every dismissive glance. She'd grown up with a disabled cousin, so this shit hit differently for her. The way my parents operated, like Caleb was some embarrassing furniture they had to work around, made her physically tense. So we finished the main course, everyone's relaxed, and I think, now or never. I put my hand on the table and just said, I want Caleb to be my best man. The silence was so thick you could have cut it with a chainsaw. My mom's face went white. Then my mom drops this bomb. You want to turn your wedding into a freak show? Matt, we've worked too hard building our reputation to let you destroy it with some misguided guilt trip. What the hell is wrong with you? I shot back. He's my brother. My dad laughed. Actually laughed. Brother? Matt, be realistic. That thing upstairs isn't your brother. He's a project we've been managing for 24 years. And frankly, we've done a damn good job keeping this family functional despite the handicap. Leah's fork clanked against her plate. I could feel her getting pissed. Dad, you're talking about Caleb like he's what? My mom interrupted, her voice dripping with condescension. Like he's damaged goods? Because that's exactly what he is, sweetheart. And if you parade him around at your wedding, that's exactly what everyone will think about our entire family. You clearly don't understand how the real world works, my dad continued, leaning forward like he was about to close some business deal. One selfish decision like this could undo decades of careful reputation management. Do you have any idea what we've sacrificed to get where we are? What we've had to hide, to manage, to cover up? Cover up? Leah finally spoke, her voice deadly quiet. You're talking about covering up your son. My mom turned on her like a viper. Don't you dare lecture us about family management, young lady. You have no idea what it's like to deal with that kind of situation. For decades, we've protected Matt his entire life from being dragged down by genetic failure. That's when Caleb, who'd been sitting quietly through this whole shit show, got excited and said in his simple way, best man means Matt's friend. Caleb is Matt's friend. The table went dead silent for about 2 seconds. Then my mom lost her composure completely, slammed her hand on the table and hissed at him. Nobody asked you to speak, you little embarrassment. Can't you see the adults are talking? I watched my brother's face crumble. He didn't cry, didn't fight back, just went quiet and made himself smaller, like he's done 1,000 times before. That's when I stood up. That's enough. Caleb is my brother, and he's going to be my best man. My mom's voice went shrill. Are you insane? Do you want to humiliate us in front of 300 people? In front of Pastor David? In front of every important family in our congregation? Maybe you should have thought about that before treating your son like a dirty secret for 24 years. My dad slammed his glass down. Watch your tone with your mother, son. We've bent over backwards to give you a normal life, and this is how you repay us? By throwing it all away for a few minutes of virtue signaling. Virtue signaling? Leah stood up too, her chair scraping against the floor. That's your son you're talking about. That's our burden, my mom snapped back. And we've carried it with grace and dignity for Matt's sake. But I'll be damned if I let my reputation get destroyed because my son wants to play special needs advocate at his own wedding. My dad's voice got cold and calculating. If you go through with this idiotic stunt, you'll destroy everything I've built. Half my clients are from our congregation, and they trust me because I represent stability and success. You think they'll keep their retirement funds with someone whose family is a walking advertisement for genetic failure? My mom's response. If that creature shows up at the altar, don't call me mom anymore. I refuse to be humiliated in front of our entire church community because you want to play savior. We didn't raise you to be this ungrateful. And that's when I realized they were willing to completely cut me off to protect their precious image. I looked at Leah. She squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "Do it." But here's the thing. I didn't just stand my ground. I went nuclear. Even with everything you just said, Caleb is still going to stand beside me. Not as my groomsman, but as my best man. Because that's what actual family looks like. We left that night in silence. But the war had just begun, and they had no idea what they'd just unleashed. Walking to the car, Leah was shaking with rage. Matt, what they just said, how they looked at him, that's so messed up. I know. Caleb was quiet in the back seat, probably processing what just happened. Finally, he spoke up. Matt, did Caleb make mom and dad angry again? No, buddy. You didn't do anything wrong. You never do anything wrong. But I could see in the rearview mirror that he didn't believe me. 24 years of conditioning doesn't disappear in one conversation. To understand why my parents went full psycho about this, you need to know the real story. And fair warning, this part's going to make you want to punch some godly people in the face. When Caleb and I were kids, we were literally indistinguishable. Same face, same height, same everything. But when we were 4, everything changed during what my parents call their ministry breakthrough moment. They had some big church fundraiser gala, where my dad was being honored as Christian Businessman of the Year. I got to go on stage with my mom while Caleb got shoved into some loud, overstimulating nursery room with strangers. The kid was 4 years old, overwhelmed, and completely alone. By the end of the night, they found him curled up in a corner, rocking back and forth, completely shut down. And that's when something inside him broke. But here's the part that haunts me. Instead of recognizing trauma, my parents saw embarrassment. I remember my dad pulling me aside that night. Son, sometimes God tests families to see who's strong enough to carry his message. Translation. Caleb was damaged goods, and I was the golden child. The first real incident happened when we were 6. We were at Sunday service, sitting in the front row because my dad was giving the sermon that day. Caleb got overstimulated by all the noise and started humming to self-soothe. My mom grabbed his arm so hard she left bruises and dragged him out of the sanctuary. I found them in the church bathroom 20 minutes later. She was gripping his shoulders, shaking him, whispering, "You will not embarrass this family again. God doesn't love children who can't behave." Caleb was crying silently, nodding like a broken doll. When I tried to intervene, she snapped at me. "Matt, go back to your seat. Your brother needs to learn." But I didn't go back. I sat on the bathroom floor next to Caleb until my dad came looking for us. Even at 6, I knew something was fundamentally wrong with how they treated him. The second incident was worse. My mom had just been elected president of the church women's ministry. Big celebration dinner. Lots of important people. Caleb wasn't supposed to be there, but he followed us anyway because he was scared of being left alone. When they announced my mom's position and everyone started applauding, Caleb got excited and started clapping too, but louder than everyone else, stimming with his hands. The applause stopped. People stared. A major donor's wife whispered something about disruptions. That night, my dad locked Caleb in the basement for 3 days. Brought him water and crackers twice a day like he was some feral animal. I remember sliding drawings under the basement door and running away before anyone could catch me. Every time I asked where Caleb was, my parents would say he was thinking about his choices or learning to be grateful for what God provides. Meanwhile, I could hear him crying through the heating vents at night. On the 3rd day, I snuck down there with a full plate of dinner. Found him curled up on an old couch, pale and shaking. He looked at me with these hollow eyes and whispered, "Matt, Caleb was bad. Caleb always bad." That's when I first understood that my parents weren't just strict, they were breaking him on purpose. But the worst part wasn't the punishments. It was the gaslighting. Every Sunday, my parents would stand up in church and talk about being blessed by God's perfect plan. They'd quote scriptures about loving your neighbor while treating their own son like a shameful burden. My mom would lead Bible studies about compassion while coming home and screaming at Caleb for stimming. My dad would give sermons about Christian family values while literally hiding one of his children from the world. The manipulation was surgical. They convinced Caleb that his autism was God's punishment for being inherently bad. They taught him that hiding was kindness, that by making himself invisible, he was protecting the family from his defects. For the next 22 years, I watched them build their entire identity around being model Christians while psychologically torturing my brother behind closed doors. Every achievement I had came at the cost of Caleb being erased. Every opportunity I got was denied to him. Every time someone praised my parents for raising such a successful young man, Caleb was locked away upstairs. They had backup plans for everything. If someone asked about family photos with only one son, they'd say Caleb was camera shy. If neighbors wondered why they never saw him, he was studying privately or helping with housework. They turned his whole existence into a carefully managed lie. And you want to know the most screwed up part? Caleb never complained, not once. He just quietly loved me, supported me, and tried to stay invisible so our parents wouldn't get angry. Every morning before school, I'd find a folded paper heart in my backpack. When I was sick, he'd sit outside my door for hours, humming softly. When I brought Leah home for the first time, he was the first to speak. Matt happy now. Leah makes Matt happy. Nobody understood me better than Caleb, and I'd let him be erased for 24 years while our parents played dress up as godly people. Not anymore. The next morning, I'm standing in my kitchen with coffee, looking out at the garden Leah and I planted together. She's already left for her shift at the hospital, but there's a note on the counter. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Caleb deserves better. I pull out my phone and call my father. I've made my decision. Caleb is my best man. Silence. Then, son, let's talk about this rationally. Your mother and I have been praying about this situation. Stop. Just stop with the Jesus talk, Dad. You've been hiding your own son for 24 years. Don't lecture me about prayer. That's when his mask slipped completely. That mistake has been nothing but a drain on this family since day one. We've sacrificed our social standing, our peace of mind, and countless opportunities to protect you from being associated with his defects. Do you have any idea what it's cost us to keep this family looking normal? That boy. Not his son. Not Caleb. That boy. You mean you've sacrificed him to protect your reputation? My mom grabs the phone. Matt, honey, you're being incredibly selfish right now. Our entire congregation will be there. The Andersons, the Stevensons, Pastor David's whole family. These are important people who respect us, who look up to us as leaders. If they realize we've been dealing with this embarrassment for so long, it'll destroy everything we've worked for. Don't you care about what this will do to us? The entitlement in her voice was staggering, like I owed them a perfect wedding performance to protect their decades of lies. You mean your son? You know what I mean. And I did. I knew exactly what she meant. In their world, having a disabled child wasn't a blessing or a challenge. It was a judgment from God. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice dead calm. Caleb is going to be my best man. If you have a problem with that, don't come to the wedding. You can't be serious. Try me. After I hung up, I sat there thinking about every Sunday school lesson they'd forced me to attend. Every sermon about loving the least among us. Every Bible verse about caring for those who can't care for themselves. All bullshit. That's when Leah came home early from work. She took one look at my face and said, "What do you need me to do?" I need to call Trevor. Trevor Hayes is my best friend from college, now a social media consultant who specializes in reputation management. We played rugby together. Dude's got that screw around and find out mentality that made him perfect for taking down bullies. He's also the kind of guy who believes that sometimes bad people deserve what's coming to them. Dude, you sound like someone stole your dog. What's up? I told him everything. The hidden brother, the fake Christian bullshit, the ultimatum, the 24 years of psychological abuse disguised as faith. Trevor's face got darker with every detail I shared. When I finished, Trevor was quiet for a long moment. He'd met my parents at graduation, thought they were a little too perfect back then. Then, "Bro, I'm not usually the revenge type, but this is some seriously messed up shit. What do you want to do about it?" I want to expose them. All of it. Every lie, every manipulation, every moment they chose their reputation over their son. You sure? This kind of thing, once it's out there forever. Good. Maybe the next family who thinks about hiding their disabled kid will remember what happened to Jonathan and Rebecca Mitchell. Trevor's voice shifted into business mode. All right, I'll need documentation. Photos, records, witnesses. The more evidence we have, the more credible this becomes. I've got 24 years of evidence. Perfect. Let's burn this house down. But first, I had one more call to make. The most important one. Grandpa? It's Matt. I need to tell you something. William, my grandfather, doesn't waste words. He built our family's construction empire from nothing, and at 80, he's still sharp as a nail gun. When I finished telling him the whole story, the line went dead quiet. Then, where is Caleb right now? At the house with Mom and Dad. Not anymore. I'm picking him up in 20 minutes. He's staying with me until this gets sorted out. Grandpa, you don't have to... Boy, I've been watching your parents play dress up as good people for 24 years. I knew something was wrong, but I hoped they'd do better by both of you. His voice got cold as winter. I should have stepped in sooner. The thing about my grandfather is that he doesn't make idle threats. When he says he's going to do something, it happens. 20 minutes later, I get a text from Caleb. Grandpa here. Says we going on adventure. Then another text from Grandpa. Got him. Your parents tried to stop me. Told them they could explain to the police why they were keeping an adult against his will. 2 hours later, my phone rings. It's Caleb, excited and confused. Matt! Grandpa here. Big truck, loud music, ice cream for dinner. Caleb stays with Grandpa now. In the background, I hear my grandfather's voice. Tell your brother we're going to fix this. For the first time in years, Caleb sounded genuinely happy. Not the careful, quiet happiness he showed around our parents, but the loud, unfiltered joy of someone who wasn't afraid of getting in trouble for existing. That evening, my parents showed up at my house again. This time they looked different. Panicked, desperate. Where is he? My mom demanded, her voice sharp with entitlement. Your grandfather had no right to take him. We're his legal guardians, and frankly, we know what's best for him. This little rebellion of yours has gone far enough. Actually, my dad said, pulling out his phone with visible frustration, we've been calling him all day, demanding he bring Caleb back. The old man is being completely unreasonable about this whole situation. I almost laughed. They were still talking about Caleb like he was property they'd temporarily misplaced. That's when a truck pulled into my driveway. My grandfather's massive F-350 with Mitchell Construction painted on the side. He climbed out slowly, deliberately, like a gunslinger stepping into the street. Behind him, Caleb hopped out of the passenger side, grinning like a kid at Christmas. Matt! Grandpa truck has seat warmers and snacks, and Grandpa says tomorrow we build birdhouse. My parents stood there frozen, watching their hidden son be genuinely happy for maybe the first time in decades. The contrast was brutal. Caleb bouncing around excited about seat warmers, while they looked like someone had just told them their house was foreclosed. Grandpa walked up to them with the kind of calm that comes before a tornado hits. Jonathan, Rebecca, Dad, we need to talk about this situation. No. His voice cut through my father's words like a chainsaw. You need to listen. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. This is a letter I wrote to your church board about how you've been treating your son for 24 years, about the lies you've been telling, about the basement punishments and the emotional abuse, and the way you've used your faith as an excuse to torture a child. My mom's face went white. William, you can't do this to us. The church is our entire life, our identity. These people depend on us for spiritual guidance. How can you destroy everything we've built over one defective child who doesn't even understand what's happening anyway? Should have thought about that before you decided to be hypocrites. He pulled out another piece of paper. This is a letter to the State Licensing Board for Financial Advisors. Turns out, they don't like it when their licensed professionals show patterns of deception and manipulation, especially when it involves vulnerable family members. My dad actually stumbled backward. You vindictive old man, my practice, my reputation, I've spent 20 years building that client base. You can't destroy my life's work because you've suddenly developed a conscience about the family problem we've been managing just fine. Try me. But Grandpa wasn't done. He reached into his other pocket and pulled out a thick legal document. And this is the new version of my will. Funny thing about wills, you can change them anytime you want, especially when you find out your son and daughter-in-law are child abusers hiding behind Bible verses. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents looked at each other, then at Caleb, who was obliviously examining my garden sprinklers, then back at the legal papers in my grandfather's hands. What do you want? My dad finally whispered. I want you to stay away from both of my grandsons until you figure out how to be actual Christians instead of fake ones. I want you to think real hard about whether your reputation is worth more than your family. And I want you to decide if you're going to be at that wedding supporting both your sons or if you're going to keep playing pretend until you lose everything. He handed the letters to my dad. You've got 24 hours to decide. After that, these get mailed. My parents left without another word. As their car pulled away, Caleb tugged on my sleeve. Matt, is Grandpa going to make Mom and Dad be nice now? Yeah, buddy, I think he is. For the first time in 24 years, someone with real power was finally in Caleb's corner. Game over. 24 hours later, my parents still hadn't called. So Grandpa and I decided to help them make their choice. First stop, their church. Trevor had done his homework. Turns out megachurches really don't like it when their prominent members get exposed for child abuse. Something about protecting the integrity of the ministry and avoiding scandal. We walked into Pastor David's office with a folder full of documentation. Photos of the bruises on Caleb's arms from when he was 6. Records from his pediatrician noting, concerning behavioral changes consistent with trauma. Even a few audio recordings I'd secretly made over the years of my parents screaming at him. Pastor David, this slick prosperity gospel type who drives a BMW and preaches about God's blessings, went pale as he flipped through the evidence. William, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, because Jonathan and Rebecca have been lying to your face for 24 years. What do you want me to do? I want them removed from all leadership positions. I want their donations returned. I want it made clear that child abuse isn't tolerated in your church, no matter how much money someone tithes. And if they refuse to step down, Grandpa smiled like a shark, then this all goes public. Social media, local news, the works. How do you think your congregation will feel when they find out their women's ministry president has been psychologically torturing her disabled son? Pastor David started making phone calls before we left the building. I could hear him through the door. Rebecca, we need to talk. Today. The panic in his voice was music to my ears. Watching him panic was beautiful. This guy had built his entire career on the donations and reputation of families like my parents. He drove a car worth more than most people's houses while preaching about humility. The thought of losing that credibility terrified him more than doing the right thing ever motivated him. Next stop, Dad's office. Trevor had worked his magic here too. Turns out, wealth management is all about trust. And when your clients find out you've been lying about your family situation for decades, they start wondering what else you might be lying about. We didn't even need to go inside. Trevor had already sent anonymous tips to 3 of my dad's biggest clients, all pillars of the same church community. The kind of people who hire financial advisors based on Christian values and family integrity. By the time we drove past the office, there were already 2 cars in the parking lot, angry clients having emergency meetings. Through the window, I could see my dad gesturing frantically, his face red with stress. One of the clients was shaking his head and pointing at documents. Looks like Mr. Henderson just learned where his retirement fund manager's been hiding his autistic son for 24 years, Trevor said, grinning. But the real masterpiece was what Trevor had done with social media. See, my parents had been building their online presence for years. Facebook posts about blessed family life, Instagram photos of their perfect Christian home, LinkedIn articles about faith-based financial planning, all of it built on a lie. Trevor had created a simple, devastating post on a burner account. Anyone else notice that Jonathan and Rebecca Mitchell from Crossroads Church never mentioned their autistic son? Weird how their blessed family only includes 1 twin. Makes you wonder what else they're hiding. He posted it in the church's community Facebook group, tagged a few gossip-loving ladies, and sat back to watch the fireworks. Within 2 hours, the post had 50 comments. People started asking questions, sharing observations, connecting dots. The church gossip network was more efficient than the FBI when it came to spreading dirt. Wait, they have 2 sons? I always wondered why Matt never brought his brother to church events. My sister-in-law works at the grocery store, says she's never seen another Mitchell boy, ever. The beauty of it was that we didn't have to lie about anything. We just had to let people notice what had been hidden in plain sight. By evening, my phone was buzzing with texts from extended family members I hadn't heard from in years. Matt, what's this about your brother? Did your parents really hide Caleb from everyone? Is it true they locked him in the basement? But the best text came from my cousin Jessica, who runs a disability advocacy nonprofit. Holy shit, Matt. If even half of this is true, I'm filing a report with Adult Protective Services. This is exactly the kind of case we've been building documentation for. That night, Leah and I were having dinner when my phone rang. It was my mom crying. Her voice sounded hoarse, like she'd been sobbing for hours. Matt, please. You have to fix this mess you've created. People are calling us, attacking us, questioning everything we've worked for. Pastor David wants to meet tomorrow to discuss our fitness for leadership. The church board is asking invasive questions about our ministry positions. This is all your fault for being so stubborn and vindictive. Mom, you did this to yourselves. But we're family. Doesn't loyalty mean anything to you? After everything we've given you, every opportunity we've provided, every sacrifice we've made to ensure you had a normal life, this is how you repay us? By destroying us over someone who can't even appreciate what you're doing? Family means everyone gets counted. You taught me that wasn't true. What do you want from us? I want you to admit what you did to Caleb. I want you to apologize to him, to me, and to everyone you lied to. And I want you to get professional help. Silence. I hung up. 3 days later, I sent out new wedding invitations. Same date, same time, same venue. The printer looked at me weird when I handed over a list with 2 names crossed out, but I paid cash and he didn't ask questions. But Jonathan and Rebecca Mitchell were no longer invited. Instead, the guest list included every person they'd lied to, every friend they'd deceived, and every church member who was just now learning the truth about their perfect Christian family. I made sure certain people got hand-delivered invitations, the kind that required signatures. The wedding was going to be beautiful, and my parents were going to hear about it secondhand while they figured out how to explain 24 years of lies to everyone they knew. 2 weeks before the wedding, something unexpected happened. My parents showed up at Grandpa's house, not to make demands or threats, but to see Caleb. Grandpa called me first. They're here. Been sitting in the driveway for an hour, just staring at the house. You want me to send them away? Let me talk to Caleb first. When I got there, I found my brother in the workshop, carefully sanding a birdhouse he'd been building with Grandpa. His hands were steady, focused, happy. Caleb, Mom, and Dad are outside. They want to see you. He looked up with those gentle brown eyes, the same ones I see in the mirror every day. Are they angry still? I don't know, buddy. Do you want to see them? He thought about it for a long moment. Yes, but Matt stays too. So we went outside together. The first thing I noticed was how small my parents looked. My dad's BMW was dusty, like he hadn't been taking care of it. My mom's hair wasn't perfectly styled for the first time in my memory. They looked broken. When they saw Caleb, my mom started crying immediately. Something raw and desperate. Caleb, sweetheart, we've been wrong. So wrong. My dad just stared at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. Son, we need to apologize. Caleb tilted his head, studying them. Then he said something that gutted me. Mom crying. Dad sad. Caleb did something bad? That's when I realized the damage ran deeper than I thought. After 24 years of psychological abuse, my brother's first instinct was still to blame himself. No, buddy, I said, putting my arm around him. You didn't do anything bad. You never did anything bad. My mom tried to step closer, but Caleb moved behind me. The fear was still there. We know you probably can't forgive us, my dad said quietly. But we wanted you to know we're getting help. Real help. Therapy. Counseling. Everything we should have done years ago. And we resigned from our positions at church, my mom added. Pastor David asked us to step down until we figure out how to be better people. I felt something I hadn't expected. A tiny crack in the wall of anger I'd built up. But then Caleb asked the question that reminded me why I was doing this. Does this mean Caleb can come to family dinner now? The silence stretched out like a held breath. Yes, my mom whispered. If you'll let us try again? 1 week later, Leah and I got married at Falls Park on the Reedy, a beautiful venue right in downtown Greenville. Perfect size for 280 guests. I'd trimmed the list down after uninviting my parents and their fake friends. But the most important thing wasn't who wasn't there. It was who was. Caleb stood beside me as my best man, wearing a navy blue suit that Leah had helped him pick out. He wasn't nervous or confused. He just smiled gently and whispered, Matt, this is the best day. Caleb gets to be the best man for the best brother. During the ceremony, I caught him looking out at the crowd with wonder. He'd never been the center of positive attention before. Never had hundreds of people smile at him with genuine warmth. For the first time in his life, he wasn't being hidden. A few people in the crowd were wiping their eyes. When Leah walked down the aisle, I watched Caleb's face light up. He leaned over and said, Matt chose good. Leah has kind eyes. But the moment that broke me was when Leah said her vows to me, then turned to Caleb. And Caleb, I promise to take care of both my boys. Always. My brother nodded seriously. Caleb helps take care too. Good team. In the back of the venue, I caught a glimpse of my parents standing outside the glass doors. They weren't trying to get in, weren't causing a scene. They were just watching, like they were seeing their sons for the first time. Grandpa noticed them too. He walked over and said something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it made my dad nod, and my mom wipe her eyes. They left quietly after that. The photographer wanted to take some shots of just the two of us. As we stood there, identical faces in matching suits, I realized this was the first time in our lives we'd been photographed together as equals. Not as the golden child and the hidden burden, but as brothers. Later, Trevor pulled me aside. Dude, you know your parents' lives are basically over, right? Your mom lost all her church friends. Your dad's practice is hemorrhaging clients. Their reputation is completely shot. I looked over at Caleb, dancing badly but happily with Leah's grandmother. Good, I said. Maybe now they'll remember what actually matters. I'm writing this exactly 1 year after that dinner that started everything. I'm sitting on my porch, watching Caleb teach our 6-month-old daughter Harper how to stack blocks. She laughs every time he claps for her. My parents got exactly what they deserved. My father's financial advisory practice collapsed within 6 months. Turns out when your business is built on Christian values and you get exposed as a child abuser, clients tend to flee. He's doing tax prep at H&R Block now for $12 an hour, driving a dented car. My mother lost her entire social circle. The church ladies who used to worship her leadership suddenly didn't have time for coffee dates. Her Bible study group disbanded after 3 members quit in the same week. She tried joining 3 different churches. Each time, someone recognized her name and word spread. For 24 years, they built their identity around being perfect Christians with a perfect family. When that shattered, they discovered they had no real identity underneath the pretense. The real consequence was loneliness. My dad called me 4 months after the wedding, sounding broken. Matt, I know I don't have the right to ask, but how is Caleb doing? He's good, Dad. Really good. I've been thinking about that dinner. Long pause. You were right. He should have been your best man 20 years ago. For everything. That led to supervised visits at Grandpa's house. Once a month they sit with Caleb. No demands, no control, just trying to exist in the same space as their son. The best part is watching him with my daughter Harper. He calls her Little Matt and makes faces that crack her up. When she's fussy, he hums until she settles. He's going to be the best uncle in the world. Grandpa cut my parents out of his will permanently, but set up trust funds for Caleb's care and Harper's education. Money should go to people who understand what family actually means. My cousin Jessica's disability advocacy organization turned our story into a case study. Loving Christian family, hiding their disabled child to protect reputation. She sent me the preliminary report last month. Turns out it's more common than anyone admits. Jessica told me, your story is helping other families realize they have choices. Embrace their kids as they are, or spend decades lying and lose everything that matters. We're seeing more families choose honesty after reading what happened to yours. But the real victory happened 3 months ago. Caleb was helping me paint Harper's nursery, working quietly like he does everything. Out of nowhere, he said, Matt, Caleb is happy now. And that's when I knew we'd won. Not because my parents lost their reputation or money or fake friends, but because Caleb finally understood that he deserved to exist in the light. That's worth destroying a reputation for. That's worth burning down 24 years of lies for.